Hello everyone, Russ of Aquarimax here. More channel noise left to come in already. We'll be asleep when this goes out, but hit the like button everyone. Well, thank you, I appreciate that. Looks like we've got a couple likes already. And I'm going to show you my Titans, my Porcelio Hoffmannsegei isopods. I'm going to open this up in just a minute. It looks like Dinosaurs Terror World is in the house too. Excellent. And Demon of the River Styx. Why is your wife so lovely? I'm very fortunate, very blessed. I guess that's all I can say about that. What's up? Well, lots of things are up. Things are going well. Brandon's Pokemon is in. Randall the Sheep, hi. Welcome everyone. Is it time to get started here? Should we unveil this? Everything Created is here. Great. I hope you all can't hear the airplanes going by. We have a lot of road work and airplanes going on, so it's really loud. But let's take a look. How's the lighting? Is this good, or should I move it over into the sun a little bit? No, it's probably too much glare there. What I would like to do is unveil the isopods. We'll see what's going on. And Randall the Sheep says, how's the day going? Going pretty well, pretty busy, but can't complain. How about yours? Hope it's well. Hope it's going well. This is a female here, you can see, hanging out, not covered up, but let's flip this over and take a look at the colony and see how it's doing. They love this cork bark, and there's usually a fair number of them on the bottom. So there they go. You can see a couple of adults. Here's an adult male right there in the middle of the screen. You can see the long uropods there. To his right, there's a female, large female, a bunch of young female. There's another male right here. And Dinosaurs Terror World said, I was playing Fortnite and you started streaming. So I was like, no, I have to join the stream. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Glad I can compete with Fortnite. And Brendan's Pokemon. Thank you. Yeah. You can see that there's babies of various sizes. Some of these younger ones are probably like maybe this one that's in the center of the shot right now. Looks like a young female. Is probably old enough to start reproducing pretty soon. They're usually about 1/3 the size of the adults when they start to produce babies. They don't need to be adult size. And so, yeah, I'll probably get quite a few. In fact, that one right in the middle of the screen looks like she might actually be carrying babies, possibly. Everything Created. Where could I get some? Also, our Powder Blues Porcelio Scabber. Well, I will be selling these. I have a bit of a waiting list right now, and I'm waiting until the second generation starts reproducing before I'm actually selling them. I think I have probably 40 or 50 in here now. Started out with 11, so they're definitely increasing, but I will be selling them. Sometimes you can find them on, what do you call it? You can find them on Arachnoboards, on CaptiveIsopoda.com. Those are some good places. Now, Powder Blues, good question, are not Porcelio Scabber. They are Porcelionides pruinosus, or sometimes Porcelionides florianus, I believe, is the other species that's sometimes called Powder Blues. So they are related, but not the same species, not even the same genus. So good question. Let's see. David Azuzukausa says, hello, they look great. A couple of mine died, not sure why. I have all that's needed. Should I watch humidity or maybe need more ventilation? How often do you water? Well, that is a good question. I have lost a couple too, not a lot, but a couple of them. And I think it has to do with, going off. I think it has to do with ventilation and humidity are probably some key things. I would say my ventilation, I've got these holes in the side of the enclosure like this that are there. You know, there are only 3 on this side, and they're like 5 or 6 or 7, and I don't remember how many over here. And then on the cover, just to show you, I've got this area screened, and then I've got this old flap. When I want to reduce the ventilation, I can just flap this down to help a little bit more humid, and then I just put this back, you know, whenever I want. So that's how I regulate the ventilation. And I found in the summer sometimes I have to put the make the ventilation a little bit lower just to keep the humidity in there. What I try to do, water every other day, or sometimes every day depending, but I always keep I only water one area, so maybe a quarter to a third of the vivarium gets dampened and the rest of it stays pretty dry. I think that's kind of important. They seem to like to be able to regulate their humidity that way. By having a gradient, they can get to a moist spot when they want one, but they can also get to a dry spot when they want one. I think that is key, not keeping the entire vivarium at one humidity. So hopefully that helps. Randall the sheep, how can you tell the sex on them? Actually, it's pretty easy. If you see this male right in the middle of the shot that's moving there, he has really long uropods, which are those structures sticking out at the end there, and really long antennae. And let's find a mature female. Well, here's one right here. Mature female. You notice her uropods are much shorter. She does have long antennae, but probably not quite as long as the males. You can see she's actually moving her uropods right now. Uropods are really interesting structures. They can use them to collect water, basically drink through them. They can also use them to excrete ammonia as a gas, which is pretty funky. So interesting structures, and that helps you distinguish. Also, the males get a bit bigger than the females. So that helps as well. But the females, I think, too, are a little more squat-shaped than the males. The males seem a little bit more elongate in general. Hopefully that helps. And yeah, so it's pretty easy with these. And let's see, who's the oldest? Well, I'm not sure. I know that you know, my adults are the oldest of the generations, but I'm not sure. I'm getting some of the younger ones that are almost as big as the adults, not quite as big, but I'm not sure which ones are the oldest among those. Hello, Paul. Paul Kuntz is in the house. Ansar us says, how long do you think it takes for these giant isopods to mature? Well, to mature in terms of reproductive size, which is a lot smaller than the adult size, I would say probably maybe 4 to 6 months. It's kind of a guess there. But in terms of maturing, like getting full size, they seem to, I'm not even sure if these are full size yet. They're getting close, but just to give you a comparison here, here's my finger. They're pretty big. I think they could probably put on a little bit more size too. So, but probably reproductive maturity at about 4 to 6 months, something like that. Dinosaurs Terrorworld asks if I feed them fruits. Yes, I do sometimes, and they're breeding pretty well. And hello, Mr. Snake. And Select Pet says, hello everyone, just stepping in a minute before work to meet. Great topic. We were actually just talking about these guys at work last night. Cool. You work somewhere you can talk about these guys. That's awesome. Everything Created said, could you water less often if you use water crystals to retain moisture? Possibly. I think I haven't really used water crystals with my isopods much. I've used them with crickets and mealworms extensively, but I haven't really experimented with that. It's probably worth a try. You just need to make sure that you have, I think, the gradient, like what I was saying, a dry side and a wet side, or moist side. And David S. says, what's the humidity meant to be for them? I had 11 and lost 2 in a few months. Thank you. Well, I think I've never actually measured the humidity, and I don't think it's that important as long as you provide that gradient. So if you, ideally, I would say have, and I'm not exactly doing this, but this is probably what I will eventually do. I have 2 large pieces of cork bark, one where it's damp underneath and one where it's dry underneath, and so they have like a humid microclimate under one and a drier one under the other. That would probably be ideal, and I may have to do that with this one. Dinosaurs Terrorworld, from where did the springtails come? Well, I've had springtails in here. Let's take a peek at some of them. There are a couple there on that piece of charcoal and on that piece of zucchini. I put them in here. I don't remember. I just always have, you know, culture these everywhere, and I put these in here for a cleanup crew. And they've been breeding in here really well. They like this substrate. Hi, Potato Derp. Good to see you here. David S. says, do they breed throughout the year or only during summertime? Thank you. Well, mine started producing, I believe, in the winter or early spring and have produced a few broods since then. In the last month or so, I don't think I've seen any babies, new babies, but sometimes I miss them because they're down hiding in this leaf litter and in other parts of the substrate. If I dig in here, sometimes I'll see them. So, so far it's been mostly in the spring, but I've had 3 or 4 broods. And I, like I said, I haven't seen any in the last month or so, but there may actually be some in here. So I'm still trying to figure that out. Nuclear Threat 545. Do they bite? No, they don't. That's a good thing. I'm glad that I can handle them without a bite. I should probably pick one up and you can check that out. Dinosaur's Cherry World says, must the substrates be moist or somewhere in between? Well, I recommend keeping part of it very moist and part of it pretty dry. Oh, looks like we've got a super chat here. I gotta find my super chat. I will definitely get to that, Jack, as soon as I find it. It says, I've always just stepped on bugs and crushing them, but after listening to you talk about these critters, I still crush them, but now I feel so guilty doing so. Well, thank you, Jack. I'm glad that I'm at least making some difference, and maybe eventually you won't squish them. So I appreciate the super chat a lot. If you have any other comments or questions you'd like me to address, let me know. But I really, really appreciate it. And Brendan's Pokemon says, I know this doesn't have to do with the Titans, but have you ever thought of getting scorpions or tarantulas? Well, I do have a scorpion. And I love scorpions. I think they're great. I wouldn't have any that were medically significant. The one I have has a very mild venom. It's a Coahuila Devil Scorpion. I did an unboxing of it a month or two ago. You could probably check that out if you want to. I've made a feeding video of that scorpion, and we'll be releasing that eventually in the future. But yeah, I do love scorpions. I can't keep tarantulas because my wife has asked me not to, so I can't do that. And you're welcome, Everything Created. Glad I could be of help. And Answer Us says, are you keeping... okay. Oh, there must be a typo here. Are you keeping something springtails, and do you know what kind? We have rather large Pogonognathelus springtails, large silvers here in the nearby forest. Cool. I think the kind I have in here is Sinella curviceta. These guys down here. Sinella curviceta. I also keep Fulsomia candida, and there are a couple of other incidental ones that I don't culture exactly, but I have them in vivariums that shown up, like tiny little silver ones and stuff. So those are the only two that I have identified to species, but I do have some others as well. Crazy Beardy Lady, Beardy's Rule, hey, welcome. And David says, I have one with a marsupium. How long does it take for them to give birth? Thank you. It doesn't take very long. I think it just takes a few weeks once they're in the marsupium for the eggs to hatch and for them to get to this, get to the age that they can start leaving the marsupium or pouch. But I'm not sure of exactly how long. Let's see. And Crazy Beardy Ladies, Beardy's Rule. I can see you now. I'm just a little bit behind on the chat, but I can totally see you now. I keep getting this notification that I need to do this podcast. Somehow I caused it to, I would not podcast this live stream. Somehow it's keeps reminding me, even though I'm already doing it. I must have pushed the wrong button at some point, so it's making some noise. Okay, and Robert Gears in the house. Excellent. Glad to see you here. Elaine Smith says, thanks for this podcast. I've been unsuccessful with isopods, and I'm going to try after this video. Excellent. Now, whichever species you're trying, each is a little different. Some require a lot of humidity. Some require a fair amount of ventilation. So if you have a specific species you want me to help you with, let me know. I'm more than happy to give you some feedback on that or some tips. And I do have some videos that are specifically about care, so maybe I can help you out there, Elaine. And my name is Jeff. How do you get your springtails? Well, I started out with a colony I got from a frog breeder years ago, and then I purchased some other species and so on. So they're pretty easy to get. I actually do sell springtails. You can also buy them from a lot of dart frog breeders or others who work with bioactive vivariums. And I would be one of those. If you want to contact me on my info or on my about page on my YouTube channel, I can totally set you up. So, Crazy Beardy Lady, Beardy's Rule says it's glitching. So, are you having trouble with the stream? Is anybody else having trouble with the stream? That Guy T says, are there any websites you recommend getting plants for enclosures? Well, one that I've worked with is Any Herp, New England Herpeticulture. They have a greenhouse as well as a facility for vivariums, so they're really good with their plants. I wouldn't recommend necessarily getting anything right now this season from a place like that, just because shipping, unless you live close to it, because shipping in this weather is awful on plants. It's pretty hard on plants. There we go. We'll get a good look at that, see if I can focus it. Yeah, you can see how big it is. So I would say any herp is a good place to work with. I've had good experiences with them. Also, if you have a large, like, tropical plant nursery, I have one next to me. It's called J&J Gardens. It's, 5 minutes of drive away, and it's one of the largest in my region of the U.S. And so I go there sometimes too because they have a large selection, and you're going to have to process the plants either way. So if you can get it locally and not have to worry about shipping, that's always a great thing. My buddy's channel says, wow, I wish these were commonly available from where I'm at. What is the region of the world you're in? These are now available in the United States, but I wouldn't say commonly. You can get them, but you often have to wait. But there are definitely places in the world they're harder to get. They're natives of Spain, so there's that to be reckoned with. But now they're starting to spread around. They're available in lots of places in Europe and the US, and I'm not sure where else now. David asks, what's the amount of babies per one female, if you notice? Thank you. I would say probably about, I don't know, I want to say maybe 10 or 12-ish. I'm not entirely sure. And it probably depends on the age and size of the female as well, but something like that. Let's see. Yeah, I would say right around there. It's probably a little bit variable. Dinosaurs Terror World. Russ, is it safe to cut the stinger with scorpions so they don't harm you even if the venom doesn't hurt you at all? I definitely would not. I think you could do a fair amount of harm to a scorpion doing that, and I'm not sure. Part of the deal is most venomous creatures, the venom actually helps them digest their food, and so by removing their stinger, not to mention the pain that could be caused there, you might be making it more difficult for them to digest their food. So I would definitely not. I would definitely not do that. Let's see. And I can see Crazy Bearded Lady now. You're here. I can see you. I'm just behind. David S. says, your videos are great, by the way. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Crazy Bearded Lady is going to be getting morning geckos soon. That's awesome. As you know, those are one of my favorite geckos. And I have a lot of little babies right now that are growing up, getting ready to go to their homes, to people on the waiting list. They're great. They're just a lot of fun. So I'm glad you're going to get into those. So David S. says, they mainly feed on wood and leaves. Which veggies and fruit would you recommend? Mine don't seem to go crazy for anything, but they do nibble. That's what I've noticed about my Titans, is that they eat everything. And I offer a lot of stuff. I offer bug burger, I offer zucchini, I offer sweet potatoes, I offer carrots, I offer apple, banana, orange. They eat all of those, but they don't really seem to go crazy like some of the other isopods do. Like most of my isopods will go nuts over bug burger, zucchini, apple, orange, a lot of those things. These guys just nibble at it. They don't seem all that excited for whatever reason about anything, but they do eat it. And obviously they're breeding, but sometimes I wonder why, because they don't seem to be eating all that much, but they obviously are. It's just I don't really catch them doing it, I guess. It's kind of weird. So those are some ideas for you. That guy T says, what type of heat lamp do you recommend from plants already in an enclosure? Most of my plants have died in my crested gecko enclosures. Do you mean heat lamp, like the actual light? Because I wouldn't recommend a heat lamp with crested geckos. I would just recommend a full spectrum, either a fluorescent bulb or an LED. I use, let's see, what have I got on most of mine? If you go to the hardware store, if you want to go on the cheap end, go to the hardware store and get like a 23 watt to 26 watt full spectrum between 5,000 and 6,700K bulb, compact fluorescent bulb. Those work fine. They give a little bit of heat, but not a lot. And then I also use some LED bulbs. I use the Jungle Dawns in with my dart frogs, and they work great with the plants. I use a Jungle Dawn, or is it a Value Grow, with some of my morning geckos. I have a Value Grow in one of the vivarium, in both of the vivariums. I think they're Value Grows. One might be a Jungle Dawn, and those are LEDs available from any herp. And then I use my other crested gecko enclosure. I use just the fluorescent between 23 and 26 watt full spectrum bulb, and they work great. They don't produce a ton of heat. The LEDs especially don't, and what heat they do produce goes up. So if you have a vent in there, it helps vent that heat off, and they work great for the plants. Let's see, hopefully that helps. Dinosaurs Terror World says, Russ, I think that you should make a poll in every video you make. I had 3 things you can take about your next video, and the one who gets the most votes, after that you do a video about it. Not a bad idea. I definitely need to do more polls. Good idea. Millipede Lover says, how are your ivory millipedes? Doing well. They're growing. When I look in the enclosure, this is a great thing about ivory millipedes. I can usually see 2 to 3 out. I've got, what do I have in there? I think I've got 6. Is that right? I think I've got 6 in there. But I usually see 2 or 3 out at any given time, which is nice because not all isopods, or not all millipedes will be out that often. So it's nice to see them doing that. And they're growing bigger and bigger. I rather suspect my female is old enough to start producing eggs if she hasn't already, so I'm looking forward to that. Crazy Beardy Lady says, I love your baby morning geckos. Thank you. Me too. They're so fun. Ty Sign 13, keep up the great work. Well, thank you. I will try to do that. And Crazy Beardy Lady says, do you sell them? I'm just curious. The morning geckos? Sure. And also these isopods. I sell both of them. It has to be within the continental United States. I ship a lot in July and August, but sometimes I can. It kind of depends on where you are and what the weather's doing. But I tend to ship a lot in September through up into maybe early November, and then I ship a lot again starting in probably March, because the temperatures start to calm down a little bit. That's when I do a lot of shipping. All right. Let's see. Oh, good. The glitches are long. So Dinosaurs Terror World, how long does what live? I'm not sure which one you're talking about. These guys probably live several years, maybe like 5 years or so. I'm not sure exactly. Morning geckos can live 17 years, maybe longer. Robert Gear says, so I started an Oniscus ocellus colony without really knowing what I'm doing. If you could help me in any way, it'd be much appreciated. Sure, Robert, be happy to help you. Oniscus ocellus like it cool, and they like it really humid. So keep the humidity up. They don't need a ton of ventilation. They need a little bit, but they do need a lot of humidity, and they like it cool. And that can be hard to do in the summer. But they're also pretty, they have pretty good appetite, so make sure to feed them a lot. I recommend bug burger as one of the main staples, in addition to, of course, the leaves and wood. But I would say, if I had to give you 2 tips about Oniscus ocellus, is keep them as cool as you can within reason, cool room temperatures. In Fahrenheit, if you're in the low 70s, even the high 60s, low 70s, they're going to do great. And keep them more humid than you think you might need to, but also there should be a little drier area in there. But I would say in an Oniscus ocellus colony, keep 3/4 of the colony pretty moist, not soaking of course, but pretty moist, and then one quarter of it a little dry. And they seem to do well with that. They really just don't like it hot and they don't like it dry. Some Egg says, what do you think is the easiest isopod species to raise? There are a couple out there that are really easy. I would say powder blues are one of the easiest species to raise. They breed really quickly. They can do well in low ventilation, high ventilation, low humidity, fairly high humidity. Yeah, I would say powder blues are probably the easiest. And they reproduce quickly too. So, Dinosaurs Terror World. Russ, have you thought on buying a small camera so you can improve your video quality? I have thought about that. Eventually I probably will. And I think the main reason is because it is difficult to do macro video with an iPad. The lens just has trouble with getting too close to things. And I do have a macro lens that I can, attach over it, but it's not that great. And so I've thought about doing that for macro shots. But other than that, I think the iPad works fairly well. But I do feel like for macro shots, I would like a camera at some point. I used to have one, and it broke, so I don't use it anymore. It's been a few years. Potato Derp says, I don't know if I can keep supporting these yabbies. They slurp up any food you put in there immediately. And yabbies is another word for crayfish. So, yeah, they certainly have hearty appetites. Ty Sign 13, will high heat kill plants? Yes, depending on the plant. Some plants, of course, are much more tolerant to warm temperatures than others. Some will get fried if you get over, into the 80s or above. Of course, with crested geckos, you really don't want to get a whole lot hotter than 80 anyway. So there's that. But yes, there are some plants that will die if it gets too warm, for sure. Crazy Beardy says, I have a question. Do you know where I can get rocks for my gecko's bioactive enclosure? Rocks in terms of the lower level of the substrate, or rocks just decorative rocks? Because I would give you different information depending on which one of those you're looking for. Let's see. But I would be happy to answer that for you. Dinosaurs Terror World, does my AFT gecko need a UVB source? Well, you'll find debate on that. It's a pretty heated topic, really. For some reason, my focus is, I don't know what's going on with the focus. Is it just the light? What's going on? It's probably the quality because I'm streaming. It's changing, it's lagging or something like that. Now I'm going to switch over, I think, to face so I can talk to you face to face here. So here we go. Sorry. While I move this over, I'm going to put it in my tripod. Let's see. And we'll get going. Sorry, it's kind of awkward. This transition period is always awkward. Okay, here we go. And my daughter's in the live stream too, it looks like. I don't know if you can still see her as I'm adjusting here. Okay, so sorry everybody, I'm gonna have to go back so I can catch up. Okay, UVB for an African fat-tailed gecko. A lot of people will say, yes, you should have it. A lot of people will say, no, you don't need it. And I think this is there's some debate there. Most reptiles, a lot of reptiles, I'll say, seem to benefit from some UVB. You have to be careful with certain species not to get too much. But nocturnal species are often said not to require it, but they can benefit from it. And leopard geckos and African fat-tailed geckos, they fall into that category. You certainly wouldn't want to expose them to really high amounts of UVB, but I think a lot of hobbyists agree that some moderate exposure to UVB would be beneficial, but not required as long as they're getting D3 in their diet. Everything I know. Hi, welcome. And Yeti Grant says it's too early. I'm still at work. Sorry about that. Hopefully you'll be able to catch it when you can. Floodsy says, can I house my domino roach? I only have one with my bumblebee millipede. I only have one as well. Well, that might be a possibility. Of course, if you have a female bumblebee millipede, you might end up with eggs, but I have never kept domino roaches, so I'm not entirely sure. I have heard of people doing communal setups like that. I don't necessarily see why it couldn't work. Bumblebee millipedes like a little worm. They'll be fine in the higher 70s, maybe even low 80s, and hopefully your domino roach is in that same category. I think they would have similar requirements, but since I haven't had domino roaches, I can't really tell you for sure. So Robert Gear, where do you sell your isopods? Well, I sell them locally on online classifieds. If people make inquiries, I don't really have a storefront for my isopods, but if people make inquiries through email and stuff, then I will sell them. The reason why I don't have a storefront is because right now, on arachnoboards.com, I list them when I have enough to sell. The thing is, I don't have a storefront up because my supply is not equal to the demand. If I put a storefront up, I would have to say sold out all the time. I'm trying to build up my stock, so that's why I don't do that. But people who contact me through email can totally find out what I have available. I have a price list that I send out. If you're interested, just go to my About tab on my YouTube channel. I'll send you a price list of what I got, and I'll have a list of what's available, what may be available, and you can inquire on if you're interested, and then what's not available because I'm still, I have low numbers for whatever reason. I just sold a ton, or it's a new project or whatever. So I'm happy to send that out to you if you would like. And Dinosaurs Terror Worlds, how many babies do you reproduce for female? Is that for the isopods? I think around 10 or 12. And Floodsy, can I house them in the same tank? And I think you could, but if anybody has kept roaches with millipedes, let me know, because it's something I haven't done, but I think their requirements are similar enough you could probably get away with it. Brandon's Pokemon says, do you sell the dart frog babies when the adults start breeding? I might. I haven't started breeding them yet. I have consciously avoided, putting in the things they need to get them breeding, but I may actually start once I get this new vivarium done, which I really need to get going on. I mean, I've started on it, but I need to finish it. Isopod World said, I just started keeping isopods. Excellent. Welcome. Welcome to the isopod world. They're so awesome. I love them. David says, do you spray or pour some water in the moist in? Thank you. Yes, I do both. It just depends on whether I have my spray bottle or my pouring bottle. It doesn't really matter if you mist it or if you pour it in. The water I mist is distilled water, and the water I pour in is just from filtered refrigerated water. And so they both have been purified in some manner. It's just an activated carbon filter for the other water that I get out of the refrigerator. And that's, yeah, I'll use either one. I think it's probably good to use some of both so that the minerals from the tap water get to them. Crazy Beardy Lady says, to be honest, my favorite geckos are leopard geckos, but I still love them all. My geckos mean the world to me. They're literally everything to me. Well, geckos are awesome. And you know, we love leopard geckos over here. As you know, if you've seen our videos on leopard geckos, I think they're great. So I'm glad you love geckos too. Dinosaur Terror World says, have you seen any box turtles in your backyard? I heard that happens often in the USA. It can. In my own backyard, no, because... Sorry, I gotta fix that timer. I'm not sure how to do it while still live streaming. In my state, there are no native box turtles. There are some in neighboring states, but not here, unfortunately. However, when I stayed in Texas with my grandmother when I was a kid, she had box turtles all over the place, and when she would feed the cats, the box turtles would come up to the cat dish and knock over the cat dish and eat the cat food. So I definitely saw that. That was fun. Really enjoyed that. I would feed the cats just so I could watch them. Let's see. All right. Samuel Tennyson, hi, welcome. David S. says, do you know much about frog-eyed geckos? Are leopard geckos more social than cresties? Thanks. Let's see. I don't know much about frog-eyed geckos. I've read a little bit about them, but I don't really know much at all. I'm just kind of familiar with the name. Leopard geckos, more social than cresties. I think it depends more on the individual and how they are raised than the species, honestly, because both of them can be a little bit flighty or they can be very, very relaxed. It just depends. Our leopard gecko was very kind of jumpy when she was younger, and she's calmed down quite a bit as she's aged. And our first crested gecko was very, very chill, has always been very, very chill. We got her as a 1-month-old little hatchling, and she's always been really chill. We have two others, both of which are a little bit more, they're not really skittish exactly, but they're more skittish than she is. And I think it just depends completely on, one, how they're raised, and two, their native temperament that they just come with. You can get a flighty gecko to calm down with a lot of work. One of our crested geckos, Jake, was pretty flighty when we got him, has calmed down a lot, and is usually pretty good about handling and everything, but once in a while he'll just kind of go crazy and jump off into space, much more so than Tiki, our first crested gecko. Hopefully that helps. Crazy Beardy says, rocks for like decor in my background so my gecko can lay on them. Ah, okay, cool. Well, you have a lot of choices. It's not like the rocks in an aquarium where you have to worry more about minerals and stuff like that. I would just make sure you have rocks that are clean, and rocks that don't have really sharp edges, and rocks that would be stable when you put them in so you know they're not going to fall over. I think those are the most important considerations. If I were going to put them in my vivarium, I would clean them thoroughly, just give them a thorough rinse and let them dry in the sun before I put them in. But other than those considerations, I think you could collect them if you know a place to do so legally. You could go to one of the rock yards, and a lot of times, honestly, when I've been to rock yards and ask, I'll pick up a few rocks and say, I'd like these, and they look at them and say, that's all you want? And I say, yeah. And they'll say, well, they're yours. Because they're used to dealing with huge quantities, and I'm not going to say they're all going to do that, but it's kind of nice. Sometimes you can get just 2 or 3 rocks for next to nothing. Even if you do have to pay for them, it might be a couple of dollars. So those are a couple of ideas. I mean, like a landscape rock yard is what I'm talking about. Zillaprobe says, could I use these as cleanup crew for hissers? So what temp should I keep them at? My hissers environment stays about 80 to 85. Well, let's see. I think these guys might want more humidity than your, not more humidity, less humidity than your hissers do. And that temperature might be okay for them, but I think it's a little on the warm side for them. So they would probably also compete a little bit. So when the one species is molting, the other species might bother them. I would tend to stay away from it. Oh, and thanks for the comment on my beard. I appreciate that. Miraculous Illustrator, I love your channel. Thank you. I really appreciate that too. Dinosaurs Terror World says, Russ, when I was a kid, I thought that isopods were walking sharks for some reason. Wow. I'm glad they're not. Asylum JK says, what state are you in? I am in Utah, which is a very dry state. It is the second most arid state in the United States. So pretty dry. Not a great place for turtles, although you can see desert tortoises in the southwestern corner. I did a herping video on that back in May. Got to go see some tortoises in their natural habitat for the first time in that southwestern corner of the state. There are also soft-shell turtles in that corner of the state that have been introduced, and then around the state a few other species have been introduced. It's not uncommon in some of the ponds and lakes and things like that to find turtles that have been introduced, but in general we don't have a lot of turtles here. Millipede lover, do you keep spiders? I currently have two Phidippus audax, or bold jumping spiders. Those are the only spiders I currently keep, but I do have two. I have a really kind of a big female and then a smaller male that have just shown up in the house, and I captured them and have been keeping them. The large female was quite a bit smaller when we found her back in February, I want to say. She's grown quite a bit, so they're kind of fun. Miraculous Illustrator, are captive bred dart frogs poisonous? No, they're not. And the reason why is because in the wild, scientists have indicated that what happens is in the wild they eat foods that contain the toxins, and then they store the toxins in their skin and use them as a defense. But in captivity, they're not getting those toxins. So even if you collect wild poison dart frogs that have the poisons in their skin, after a few months they don't have them anymore, and the descendants of those frogs don't have them at all. So Seth Chun says, hi, just got my own starter culture of maculatum, but they seem to burrow a lot. Is that usual? Fan from Hong Kong. By the way, love your content. Well, thank you, Seth. Nice to hear that. And I would say if you got your starter culture, most isopods will go through a period during which you won't see them a lot while your colony is starting up. They will be hiding a lot. There's a fairly low number of them in the enclosure. Once they start reproducing, you'll start seeing more and more of them, especially when you feed them. They'll really go crazy. So I think it sounds like totally normal. Make sure you get some good ventilation for those maculatum, because those are zebra isopods and they love a little bit of, they love some ventilation. And they should do well for you, and you'll start seeing them a lot more once they reproduce. And Den Skjold te Verden, how many aquariums have you? I've got, let's see, aquariums with just water. 1, 2, 3, hold on just a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 9 in the house, I think. Those are just aquariums with water. And then we've got vivariums and things too. So, Floodsy says, so do female millipedes lay eggs even if there's no male? I don't want a ton of millipedes. Okay, good question. There are some millipedes that can reproduce without a male at all, like the Tanzanian earthworm millipede. They're parthenogenic. But there are some other millipedes that I think can mate with another species and then their eggs hatch, but the male didn't contribute genetic material to them. And I think some of the Narcissus complex does that. And then I think one thing to think about is if you buy a female millipede or collect a female millipede and you don't have a male, she could well be storing sperm and or fertilized eggs and then lay eggs later that do hatch even if there is no male. So those are some things to think about. If you raise a female millipede from a tiny baby without any male, then you have a better chance of not getting a ton of millipedes. But yeah, so hopefully that helps. David S. says, Domino roaches, millipedes are iffy. They might or might not chew on your molting peat or eggs. Yeah, we were talking about the molting situation. One way to help would be to provide lots of leaves and mulch and fruit and veg so there's less competition. That makes sense. But true, the molting is still going to be a possible issue. Miraculous Illustrator, what was the most sensitive pet that you've ever had? Good question. Well, I don't know. That is a tough question. I've certainly had pets I didn't succeed with right away. I've had some fish like that I have had problems with. I've had, let's see, a couple of sensitive mantises and things like that. So yeah, probably some of the more sensitive ones that I've had. And Dinosaurs Terror World Russ, my dubia roach colony is exploding in population. Should I move them to a bigger plastic box or just leave them there for an extra year because I'm afraid they might crash at some point? I would see if you can find a home for some of your roaches. If you have a pet store you can sell them to, or other hobbyists who are feeding things, they want to start their own colony. You don't thing to do with roaches, I've heard, although of course I don't breed roaches, is that it's good to make sure you're male heavy if you want to reduce your population, because the females, you don't need very many males to fertilize a lot of females, but if you keep a lot of females, you're going to get a lot of babies. If you feel like your colony is getting too big, you can feed off more of the females. Let's see. Trying to catch up, everybody. Oh wow, I'm gonna have to call it quits in about 5 minutes or so, but I'll see what I can get through in the meantime. Potato Derp says, do you feed potatoes to your isopods? If so, you're evil. Actually, I don't. I may have done so at some point in the past, but I don't really use potatoes with my isopods. I feel like potatoes are one of those root vegetables that gets a lot of pesticides, so I feel like I don't want to deal with that. Crazy Beardy says, my leopard gecko loves me and gets depressed without me. Not that I really go anywhere. Yeah, I love how leopard geckos really seem aware. Once we moved our leopard gecko into her bioactive enclosure, she seems so much more aware, and she'll stroll around and look at us and like she's trying to get our attention and stuff. All right, well, thank you, Din. I don't know how to say your name, Din Skuldverden. Thank you for joining us today. Dinosaur Terror World says, Russ, you never showed us the male crested gecko. We only see him once, or I've seen him once. Yeah, he hasn't been in the videos as much. He's not quite as laid back, but I should show him again. And Crazy Beardy says, I love my leopard gecko so much, I want to get another one so bad, I always make sure I have enough money and space in my room. You know, making sure you have those things that's really important. And that's a good thing. Not everybody does that. Some people get into that mode, they just want to get more and more, and they don't really worry about whether or not they have enough money or space. So I'm glad you do. David S. says, would you recommend any nice side isopods, or which are fun isopods to watch? I have only Hoffman's Egg Eye and Granulatum. Thank you. Well, Hoffman's Egg Eye is definitely the largest one that I have. I would love to get Granulatum. If you are okay with going smaller, I really love Maculatum. It's Armadillidium maculatum, the zebra isopod, and the Armadillidium vulgare orange vigor. Those are great ones to watch. And the Porcelios are fun too. The smaller Porcelios, like Porcelia scabra, any of the colored variations like the oranges are fun. I want to get the Porcelio magnificus someday. I think that would be great. Crazy Beardy says, I'm my crested gecko in a few days actually. I've been doing months of research. Excellent. Good on you for that. A lot of people don't do enough. So the more research you can do, the better. That's great. Dinosaurs Terror World says, Russ, my feeder insects seem to reproduce like crazy. Maybe it's because where I live, because it's too hot and humid there. Well, that makes sense. I mean, dubias love it hot and humid, so they're going like crazy. Totally makes sense. Crazy Beardy Lady, would you ever get the app called Reptile Amino? I don't know about this app, so I'd have to check it out. And Jack LaMountain says, Russ, I think you have bugs in your beard. Just saying. I'll have to be careful. I wonder what species are in there. I hope they're isopods, because I could handle that better than some of the others. Dinosaurs Terror World. Russ, do you live in Arizona? No, but I live about maybe 6 hours drive north of it. And Josiah Kai says, awesome culture. Thank you. Elaine Smith says, looks like your daughter's reading. Nice to see young adult reading and not playing video games all the time. Yep. Do you love books, Laurelyn? Yep.
Best.
All of my kids love to read, and we read to them a lot as little kids, and my wife and I both love to read, so I think that has rubbed off on them, and I think it is a great thing. Isopod World says, I think my isopods are Armadillidium vulgare. Great species to start with. I love those. So, yeah, that's a great species. They reproduce fairly slowly, unless you have one of the cultivars that reproduces quickly, but they're great. They do need